Lovella Kalika is a little powerhouse. She didn't write that down, I'm just telling you that. She's a writer, photographer, and multimedia artist, and she is the founder and director of Warrior Writers, which is a creative community for veterans articulating their experiences. She's edited 4 anthologies of veterans writing and artwork, Move, Shoot, and Communicate, Remaking Sense, After Action Review, and Warrior Writers. She's received 3 Art and Change grants from the Leeway Foundation and was honored with the Transformation Award in 2009. Lovella has worked closely with veterans for over 10 years, primarily post-9/11 veterans. She is part of the caregiver program in the Philadelphia VA and is helping build a support network for caregivers. She's also from a military family. Her grandfather served in World War II, and her partner is an Iraq veteran and artist. Then we have today with us, right from our own community in Oxnard, please come on down, Jonas Lara. After serving in the Marine Corps, Jonas needed an outlet to express the frustrations of transitioning to civilian life and dealing with physical and mental injuries. He found that art was the only thing that could capture what he was going through. In 2005, he started his journey as an artist, first by enrolling at the Art Center College of Design, where he received his bachelor's in photography. In 2010, he continued his studies at the School of Visual Art and received his master's in fine arts with a focus on mixed media painting. He's now part of Warrior Writers. He's published in one of their anthologies, and like I said, he's right here in our own community in Oxnard. Now, from another war, Warrior Writers does work a lot with young veterans of the Iraq and Afghanistan war, but they also include veterans of other wars, and in this case we have Elijah Imlay, who was stationed at Camp Eagle, Vietnam in 1971. And by the way, I'm just going to interrupt myself to say that there are books for sale for $20 out in the lobby, and an anthology of writings by Warrior Writers, and copies of Elijah's book, Monsoon Blues, which was published in 2011 by Tebet Bach. He's conducted writing workshops for veterans of war through Poets and Writers Incorporated and Penn Center USA. He's a recipient of 3 artist fellowships from the city of Ventura, California, has won honorable mentions in the 2006 Ruskin Art Club Red Hen Press Award, the 2004 Robertson Jeffers Torhouse Prize, and the 2002 Ann Stanford Poetry Prize. And he worked as a social worker, providing psychotherapy and other mental health services in a variety of settings with an emphasis on the treatment of post-traumatic stress disorder. He currently teaches web courses on meditation for the Institute of Applied Meditation. So let's welcome them all.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me in beautiful, sunny Ventura, California, or Oxnard, California. I live in Philadelphia right now, so I'm so excited to escape the cold and enjoy the sunshine with you all. Thanks for coming indoors. I don't know how you guys do anything indoors in this beautiful state. So yeah, I'm very glad to be here. Warrior Writers travels around the country. Myself and other Warrior Writers members travel around the country to share our stories and talk about what we do and find more veterans and family members and community members interested in engaging in this process, this reintegration process. So thank you very much for being here, for taking the time out of your day to open up and give a listen. So again, my name is Lovella. I'm not a veteran, I'm a civilian. My grandfather was in World War II, and my now partner of 7 years is an Iraq veteran. artist. He's featured in all of the books. But I didn't come to this work that way, actually, through my partner or my grandfather necessarily. I moved to Philadelphia after leaving Michigan because I really wanted to get out of Michigan. It was too cold. And I started working with a bunch of different organizations, some of the veterans organizations, and I started working with them over time and became friendly with a lot of veterans my age in my peer group, and Vietnam veterans as well. But I'm a writer, so I had always been sort of writing poetry and writing about my life and my experiences with my own trauma not related to war. And at some point, I had built these relationships with the veterans that I was working with, the friendships, and I thought, some of the writing that I do is really about moving forward and sort of reflecting on how our difficult experiences from our past can help us be stronger for our future. So I wanted to share some of the poetry that I had written with them. So I did that. I said, hey, you guys, I write some poetry if you want to hear it. And they're friends, they'll listen to your poetry, that's what they do, right? Whether they're going to like it or not is another thing. I shared my writing with them. One in particular I remember sharing was As I Rebuild Myself. It was about sort of, the history of my body and what my body did, and also what I wanted it to do in the future. So how I wanted to be creative and more careful, and not my tongue so sharp. I should have brought that home, but anyway. So I shared my poetry with them. We'll leave out what they thought of it. I think they liked it. But then I asked, do you guys write? Do any of you have poetry or writing that you want to share? Obviously they did, because here we are now. So they started to share their poetry. Some of them were a lot. Some of them had written one poem. Some of them hadn't written any. But as we sat there listening, I realized, well, first of all, the poetry and the stories were amazing, right? I mean, if you've read any of the work on our website or in the books, it's powerful work, but it's really, really good. And I thought to myself, I cannot be the only one to hear this. Like, this is what's going on in the world. Like, nobody knows about this. It has to be heard. Other people need to hear this. You don't see this stuff on TV. What you see is what the politicians say or what the generals say or whatever. You don't see and hear from, real life soldiers on the ground, Marines on the ground. So I felt like it needed to get out there. It had to be in the world. I couldn't be the only one. It was so much to just be by myself and to hear all that, and I wanted to share it with other people. At the same time, I knew that for me, writing had been what I used to survive, what I've been through and process and heal and move forward. And I wanted to provide a space where the veterans could get together and I could guide them through this process, and they could do that hard writing but not feel alone, that they could get support from the other people at the table to say the things that maybe they never said out loud, or to remember the things that were really hard to remember. But to sit next to each other and to not leave the room and to not judge each other, and for people to know that it's okay to respond in whatever way you did to the experiences that you had. And so that's how it started. I didn't plan my whole life to start this veterans organization. It was just this organic thing that came from friendships and relationships and the power of art, truly the power of art, of bringing people together. So I had that idea and I wanted to do it. I wanted to make it happen. And I worked with many other veterans, two in particular, Aaron Hughes and Drew Cameron, to make it happen. And I got a little bit of seed funding from this foundation, Philadelphia Believe Foundation. So my plan was to put a book out of their work, of their writing, and have a workshop. That was what I was going to do. It was a big thing, right? So I did that. We started working on that, and we had this workshop. Then we also were like, well, let's do a book release party. We'll put it out there and we'll do a performance. We'll read the poetry at that party, at the release party. Well, so we started planning towards that, and I said, well, some people could make the first workshop. Why don't we just do another workshop that weekend? So that people came to that weekend, and we did all of those things that weekend. But when we were there that weekend, we realized too, but we're not going to stop. This isn't going to be the last. We have to keep going, because we wrote things in that workshop that were like, this needs to go in the next book. And it just kept growing and growing, getting bigger, and that's how it started. The very first workshop was in New York City, and the second workshop and book release was in Vermont. So we've been traveling around the country being hosted by different veterans, by different universities, different organizations, and just keep growing and growing. So that's what we've done. So now we've done 4 books, 4 anthologies. The first 3 were only veterans who served since 9/11. Specifically veterans that served in Iraq and Afghanistan, but any veteran, no matter whether they serve stateside or COs, whatever. We really believe that to tell the story, you need to tell the whole story. So we're not just interested in these stories of fronts. Every story is important, and every story is valid, and every story needs to be heard. So the books were for veterans from post 9/11 veterans who served at 9/11. But with this most recent book, we opened it up to any veteran who had participated with us. So this book even has folks like Bruce Weigel, Bill Earhart, who are longtime Vietnam veteran writers, very successful writers who have been involved in Warrior Writers as supporters and even in some of the workshops that we've done. So that's sort of where Warrior Writers came from. Like I said, we've done 4 anthologies, we've done performances and readings all over the country. We put up art exhibits, we do weekend and week-long conferences and retreats. We have folks come in. The writing, in the beginning it was primarily just for veterans, but over time we realized that it's not just veterans' work to come together and figure out how to move forward. It's all of our work, right? So everybody in this room, whether you know it or not, you know a veteran, they're in your community, they're at your job, they work with you, they go to school with you, they're in the movie theater. This is our community, right? So we all need to engage in this reintegration process so that we can make it better for all of us, so that we can integrate fully. So we started having different folks come to the table to the retreats that were civilians that wanted to volunteer, wanted to get involved, or wanted to offer maybe a workshop or a healing session. So we had a lot of folks come in who wanted to offer free acupuncture, free massage therapy, Reiki, yoga, all those different things. And some veterans were like a little hesitant, I'm not really sure about that, right? Who is that for? So part of the reason we really wanted to do this is because these volunteers would be there for several hours. They could have lunch with this person, they could talk to them, they could sort of get to know them and start to feel comfortable with them and really better understand what it was they were going to do. And then, let's say their friend went into an acupuncture session and came out and was like, I don't know what happened, but it was amazing. And I fell asleep and I feel great. So being inspired by their friends who had a good experience pushed a lot of veterans to try it out. And a lot of veterans to really start to take in those holistic healing methods and alternative methods into their lives. And some VAs are even offering now, the Philly VA just started offering acupuncture. So it's getting more common, but it's also not always very accessible. So we wanted to give that opportunity to folks to give it a try. We also started doing working with veterans one-on-one training. So those were designed to make sure that we kept the veterans that we're creating safe. We wanted veterans to come and not feel like there were civilians around who didn't know not to ask a question like, did you ever sleep? So maybe you've heard that question, maybe you think, who would ever ask that? It happens a lot to a lot of veterans, and obviously it's very inappropriate. So we started doing this training that focused on different ideas on how to work with veterans, how to collaborate with veterans in making art, how to be a good ally, how to be a good volunteer, not to ask those questions, to stay well from home, all these different kinds of things. And also just to help people learn more about what post-traumatic stress disorder is, all those kinds of things. Because what we found is that while a lot of people know veterans, not a lot of people have actually had discussions with those veterans about their experiences. It's very hard to do, people are very nervous about it. But after taking this workshop, a lot of people felt more comfortable and able to do that. So we've done that workshop for even actors that are putting on a play about military experience. So they've come to us and have consulted with them to give them this training so they can better understand the veterans experience. But in closing, I just want to say that we really believe that art can bridge the gap between veterans and civilians. There's a thing that poetry and art can do that you really can't say in a conversation. You can't just walk up to someone and say, so what was it like to be in the military? What was it like to be in Iraq? I mean, it's really a long conversation. You can do that with your friends over time, but if you hand them a book and you say, this page, this poem really speaks to my experience, or alternatively, if you're a family member or a civilian, you can say, I read this thing and I wondered if you totally hate this poem and totally disagree, or I wonder if you had that experience, or I wonder if it reminds you of anything of your experience. So it's really a way, the books are a really powerful tool in terms of being able to open a dialogue that it's harder to get to when you just have like a passing conversation with them. So we really encourage people to consider the use of art as a way to open up dialogue and to make connections and to sort of say the unsaid. Thank you very much.
Lara, I'm a Marine Corps veteran. Came out today for the Warrior Writers panel talk. Local artist based out of Ventura. Came to share some work with Oxnard College. If you're interested in checking out more of my work, website is www.jonaslara.com, JONASLARA.com.
That's good. My name is Elijah Emley, and I was in war in Vietnam in 1971 and early 1972. And I was attached to the 101st Airborne, and technically I was a musician, a clarinetist, and the category was called O2J20. And so our job there was to entertain and make music, but we also, I found that I interacted with a lot of people who had been in heavy combat, who were coming out of the war and wanted support. And so that was part of what I did. I was talk to people and and be with them and so forth. And so out of that, years later, I decided to write poetry, which I hadn't done since high school, and I wrote something about the war, and they kept saying, "You got to write more." As I just kept writing things that I remembered or things that friends of mine had gone through at the same time I was there, and then about 10 years later, there was a book out, Monsoon Blues, and then I was also been part of writers groups as well, and given writing workshops for vets from time to time.
And this was more sitting down. That was so amazing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Cool.
Wait, Pat, you didn't get his contact.
Oh, yeah, all I have really is an email.
That'll work.
So I'll make this easy one for me to remember. I have another one. Elijah, ELIJAH, at IamHeart, HEART, IamHEART.org. ElijahIamHeart.org.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lavella Kalika, and I'm the founder and director of Warrior Writers, a veteran-centered arts community. We put on writing and arts workshops for veterans and family members, and we compile their works into books and publications and share them with the world. We also do poetry readings and performances, and put on art exhibits. In addition, we do Working with Veterans 101 trainings. Today in Oxnard, we had a panel where myself, two veterans, one current recent veteran and one from Vietnam, shared their experiences with being artists and shared their own writing and poetry and visual art, and I shared mine as well as a military family member. Then we had a workshop where we did some writing. You can find out more about Warrior Writers at warriorwriters.org. There are hundreds of pages of poetry and videos and photographs of veterans and their artwork. Please check us out at warriorwriters.org or find us on Facebook or Twitter.